million has been adjusted down by 12.1 million to 511.2 million for the 2019-20 financial year. I will, of course, not deal with all the adjustments, which are, of course, set out in the adjusted estimates of provincial revenue and expenditure 2019. But I will, and I believe it's important to highlight some of these and how they link to the continued program to back business in the Western Cape. We will, for example, be shifting the R1 million to Program 2 for the Oudtshoorn Aerodrome project, which, of course, is an important upgrade which is required to ensure that the aerodrome maintains its CAA license and status as a backup airport to the George Airport. We will be shifting R1.4 million to Program 2 in support of the Violence Prevention through Urban Upgrading organization. And of course, this funding will be utilized specifically for the creation of additional multifunctional community buildings, which will be utilized for a business incubator program, which will provide 10 innovative businesses with workspaces. We will be shifting R100,000 in Program 2 for the provision of formal trading spaces for informal trading in the Greenpoint market. And this funding was provided at the request of the City of Cape Town and, of course, the South African Informal Trading Association. We will be shifting R100,000 to Program 3 to assist the halal certification bodies to become globally accredited as certification bodies, which of course will allow them to certify halal products and companies for the important halal export markets. And we will be shifting R496,000 to Program 7 in support of the competency-based modular training project, which aims to ensure that young people in technical vocations are equipped with relevant training so that they can get jobs. This has already resulted in an increased uptake of students completing training with companies like Imperial Motor, Golden Arrow, and My City. Finally, we have received an additional R471,000 for Program 7 from the Manufacturing, Engineering and Related Sectoral Education and Training Authorities. And these funds will, of course, support the work and skills projects undertaken by the department. Speaker, I thought that it would be appropriate to mention that last week I had the pleasure of meeting a number of innovative and impactful Western Cape entrepreneurs and business owners at the Western Cape Entrepreneurship Recognition Awards. These awards, as you know, are an annual event organized by my department to celebrate the hard work of entrepreneurs and their contribution to job creation and economic growth in the Western Cape. The title of Business of the Year was awarded to Ziahlanjwa Laundry Services, which was started in 2010 by Sivu Nobulali as a home-based laundry service in Khayelitsha, but today employs 18 people and services clients such as Shoshaloza Mail and De Beers Marine. Sivu, like many of the other business owners who received awards last week, play an important role in creating jobs and supporting skills development in our communities, and in so doing, help us to grow the economy and create jobs in the Western Cape. We obviously will support and encourage these entrepreneurs because the brave leap into the unknown that is required to start a new business often results in innovation, in competition, and in the disruption of industries, and in new ideas that we need to grow the economy and create jobs in the Western Cape. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I now recognize Honorable Nkondlo.
Enkosi Somlomo, mandibulele elithuba undinikileyo ukuthi siphendule ethu imbono ngalo oluhlahlo lwabiwo mali. Speaker, I think the first important thing to actually note is that this particular department is meant to play a catalytic role to drive economic opportunities for its citizens and lead in unlocking growth opportunities for the province. It is important also to mention, as part of the context to this adjustment budget, that this department states its vision as a vision for a Western Cape that has a vibrant, innovative, and sustainable economy characterized by growth, employment, and equitable opportunities, and built on the full potential of all. This becomes very important, as Speaker in the House, when we then look and consider what us as the legislative arm of government we are supposed to do in attending to this particular budget. 10 years down the line, it is important for us to ask the question, how has the DA economic policy fared in realizing this objective? Noting that scholars of public policy will at least indicate that it takes a minimum of a 10-year period for a particular policy to realize its intended objectives. What have we seen in the Western Cape economy? Already, we're sitting here speaking about an information that is well known by everybody of high levels of income inequality in this particular province. Again, spiraling levels of crime that has actually led to a discretionary approach by the Premier, where he declares a safety plan, comes to the House, to this particular Parliament, and requests this Parliament to then approve a budget wherein he will still go and clean up the plan, and then, as Minister Fritz had said, come back here to workshop us on the plan. This is exactly the type of governance and the role of Parliament that the DA wants to subject us to. Surely, this is against good governance, where indeed the separation of powers needs to be respected, and the role of Parliament cannot be reduced to be just a toothless voice that actually comes here and just approves things before we actually know what is entailed in it. And actually, we must be cautioned as this House on this discretionary approach to public policy in this particular province. I want to remind members that it was here which got actually our Premier into the seat as the first man of the province, where he did the same, declared a day zero, and funds were then directed to day zero. And to date, we're still asking, where is day zero? The reality of the matter, we're told once again, we're still looking for money to manage drought in this particular province. And indeed, no one has came back to us and maybe given us a workshop on the impacts of the funds that were spent in as far as day zero is concerned. And my question, Premier, is this the type of public policy approach that you are bringing into our space, where all we will do is to decree the resources of this provincial government, and only come here expecting us to just agree? Let me then come back to what we have seen in the adjustment budget. Whilst we welcome indeed the funds that has been allocated to the Atlantis SEZ so that it tries to fast track the process of establishing the SEDIC company, much needed to ensure the rollout of the Atlantis SEZ, including the additional funds that have been allocated to the Saldanha IDZ. One of the questions we ask MEC is exactly one of the challenges that was mentioned here in our discussions in the committee with the Saldanha IDZ, where indeed the program that is supposedly to drive skills development, enterprise development, all the developmental needs that are supposed to be responded to in Saldanha Bay is actually an unfunded mandate. It is very interesting that even in this budget, you chose not to respond to that particular reality that seeks to ensure that the capital investment that is done in Saldanha actually respond to the realities of the socio-economic challenges of the people of Saldanha. We welcome indeed the 164,000 which is shifted for regional skills coordination. which will then be going to the Western Cape, to the West Coast Business Development Forum. But the question, once again, is when are we finding money from the Provincial Reserve Fund to actually give money to Saldanha ITZ for the developmental program and the projects that they need to derive. Going further, I think the skills development and innovation, we are seeing again in the report that this program has deviated slightly from its planned expenditure forecast. And this is so unfortunate because once again, questions have been sent to yourself and the department asking about the continuous investment in as far as skills is concerned. All we find is a runaround. There is no clear-cut answer of how much or how many artisans have been produced through the programs, how many red skill artisans. We are told now that money is shifted to a CMBT program that is supposed to ensure work readiness of the learners. And the question is, what is an artisan program that is designed by the department outside of experiential learning, which is an integral part of any production of an artisan? So these are glaring gaps in as far as the interventions that are being done by this department. Amongst others, we've raised our issues around how do we ensure that we create an inclusive economy that ensures redress in this particular province. And for many a times, we've actually raised our voice again in the committee on these matters around the issue of tourism and ensuring how do you integrate township tourism and the small town tourism. But once again, this seems like a mirage in the type of an approach that is undertaken by this particular department. And amongst others, almost 12.5 million is from the compensation of employees is surrendered to the Provincial Reserve Fund. And this is something that we've seen across departments, that this seems to be the case. And we're sitting, amongst others, sitting with a challenge of redress in as far as employment equity, where disability, ensuring that we bring on board employees with disability, Black women in senior management position seem to be a very difficult exercise in this provincial government, including in this particular department. Can I conclude,
Yes,
Chair?
please.
I conclude by saying it is important for us to see that the economy of this province, led by this particular department, ensures that it does not reproduce inequality and elitism.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I thank you, Honourable Nkondlo. Honourable Members, I now recognize the Honourable Partman.
Honourable Speaker, fellow South Africans, some of the adjustments in Vote 12, Department of Economic Development and Tourism of the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill B6/2019 relate to the realignment of funds for the implementation of departmental leadership training and minor IT-related assets. Further, there has been a reclassification regarding various goods and services to transfers and subsidies due to accounting-related reasons, such as the establishment of the Strategic Economic Development Infrastructure Company, SEDICT. There's also an additional funding for the existing SMME development interventions of the Violence Prevention through Urban Upgrading Organization, and for the funding of the provision of formal trading spaces for informal businesses operating in the Western Cape in partnership with the South African Informal Traders Association, as well as global digital repositioning as implemented through WESCRO. Other shifts in the economic classification included the site operations and management component of the digital skills I Can Learn project. We welcome the provision of the funds of the 1 million rand to support Oudtshoorn municipality with the upgrading of Oudtshoorn Airport, which has been identified as a key economic asset. The 1.4 million rand that has been allocated for the strategic plan and informality project, 60,000 rand which has been utilized for the Women's Empowerment Project, and 17.7 million rand for the provision of funding in support of SMME development interventions for the SMME Booster Fund, forming part of the economic emerging themes and job creation stimulus. These funds will be supporting the Laingsburg, Cape Agulhas, Witzenberg, and Oudtshoorn municipalities. Naturally, I'm excited about the almost 1.5 million rand that will be allocated to the Laingsburg municipality, and I look forward to communicating this to my constituency. Connected to this, recently while doing oversight in Laingsburg, I found that the Department of the Premier has already assigned 2 new staff to the Cape Access Centre, a centre that currently assists 800 to 1,000 community members, or approximately 10% of the community. Further, part of that particular oversight, I found that not only did we get a social worker and an auxiliary social worker in the Department of Social Development, but also child welfare will also now be getting another social worker. And I thank the ministers and the Premier for this. Not only did they getting an internet connection, but fiber is currently being installed. And it just shows in terms of oversight and the connection with working with departments closely what we can achieve in this particular province. In this particular vote, I further welcome the 5 million rand for the support of the operations of the National Empowerment Fund for funding for SMMEs, 340,000 rand for encouraging entrepreneurial projects with the Western Cape Entrepreneurship Summit, Awards Expo, and the hashtag Youth Start CT entrepreneurial projects. Further, I welcome the 7.75 million rand for the establishment of the Atlantis Special Economic Zone. We welcome the provision of funds for the filling of vacant posts as part of the Skills Incentive Sub-Program, and again, we take cognizance of the fact that government has had to balance decisions of whether or not one should fill a vacant post or whether we could use those extra funds for the drought and security and safety of this province. Due to the uncertainty of the main budget allocations coming up, it was heard that there was going to be a freeze on the filling of the majority of these posts. While 50 million rand for drought and 1 billion rand for community safety is not enough, we hope that the 12 million rand surrendered to the Provincial Revenue Fund will be reallocated in order to assist with providing relief for drought and making the Western Cape safer. In connection to this particular drought, I would also just like to thank Minister Bredell for requesting that Cape Nature do an assessment at the Laingsburg Buffels River, of which I received communication from the ground this particular week. And I'd like to thank the Central Karoo District Municipality for already starting scraping the Moordenaars Karoo Road, a road which trucks need in order to utilize, to deliver supplies to farms, and which tourists use in order to spend their vacation times at guest homes in the serene Karoo area. This will also assist the wind farms currently setting up in the Laingsburg area to transport parts to their farms safely, speedily, and at reduced costs. And this are economic opportunities that are transversal, Honourable Speaker. Further, I would like to thank Minister Meyer and Minister Mania for the drought relief that has been coming from this particular budget. Minister Meyer specifically came to Laingsburg to witness the drought and the plight of the farmers, farm workers, and their spouses. They introduced the fodder relief and for pastoral and psychological assistance. During some farm-to-farm visits, I witnessed the impact of drought, which has had on the local economy, and was also informed of a young farmer, which I will not name, who committed suicide because that they have given up hope. Thank you for supporting the Laingsburg community, because this will go a long way in assisting with keeping hope. Further, we welcome the additional funding in the vote of 200,000 rand for the Ocean Economy Commodity Market Research Project, as well as the 164,000 for the West Coast District Municipality for the support of the regional skills coordination. Economic developments do cut across provinces, and I would thus like to thank Minister Marais for the support of the rugby jerseys, water bottles, and rugby balls to the Laingsburg rugby team, who have been exponentially climbing the rugby ranks this particular year. I would like to thank my colleagues in the Economic Opportunities and Tourism Committee for the engagement and contribution, the Minister, the HOD, Ms. Cantana, Ms. Salivri, the department and its various entities for their hard work and dedication towards the Western Cape province, and for always finding innovative ways to assist entrepreneurs in the Western Cape. Finally, I would like to thank our procedural officer, Ms. Zaida Adams, who advises us on the Economic Opportunities and Tourism Committee for her sound advice and commitment to this province. And I would also like to wish her a happy birthday for this particular coming Friday. To Mr. Fourie, a special thank you for the department's hard work in the green economy. I've recently found out on the ground with regards to the wind farms that almost everyone in Mikersfontein have been employed due to the new renewable wind farm operations. And I'll definitely be visiting the operations soon to engage with the businesses and those employed regarding the related benefits and any concerns they may have. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Bartman. Honourable members, with the absence of the EFF, I'm now going to recognize Honorable Heron. Honorable Heron. Thank you, Honorable Heron. Now, Honorable Christians. Thank you, Honorable Christians. Honorable Murray. Thank you, Honorable Murray. Okay. Over
Thank
to
you, Speaker. Speaker, I want to ask the Minister that we need to focus on foundation concepts like leadership, change management, teamwork, visual management of projects, and we need to transform people's mindsets regarding business processes, systems at functional levels. You know, you can have the A plan overseas, it works beautiful. That same A plan, if you bring it here, it'll have a 20% success because we lack these things I just mentioned. I want to we must set a roadmap for the people's business journeys, newcomers into business. We're not doing that. Ask yourself, does the present budget have the elements to bring this to fruition? Do we really train the people? Do they know only how to sew on a button on the shirt? Or does he know where it starts and where the shirt becomes a finished product? Or does he only see, like a fly, one section of the total operation?
Thank you, Honorable Member. Thank you,
Mr. Chairman, I think this clock needs batteries because I didn't count 1 minute.
Thank you. We'll try and get new batteries. Thank you, Honorable Murray. I now recognize the Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. I'd like to begin by thanking the Honourable Bartman for her kind words about the Head of Department, Mr. Solly Fourie, and the Department itself for their contribution to creating an enabling environment for the private sector and the markets to drive economic growth and create jobs in the Western Cape. In response to the Honourable Murray, yes, our programs do cover the issues that to which you refer. I must say I was surprised earlier when the Honourable Murray took to quoting Deng Xiaoping, which it took me by surprise. Which brings me to the Honourable Nkondlo. The Honourable Nkondlo asks, well, what has this department and indeed this province achieved over the past 10 years in relation to economic growth and job creation in the Western Cape? Well, the answer to that question is clear. We have achieved more economic growth, more investment, and more jobs, certainly, than any other province in this country. And the Honourable Member would be aware that when I tabled the Provincial Review and Economic Outlook, that if we take the outlook over the next 3 years, it is a story of a recovery in economic growth, a recovery in employment, and higher and indeed improving human development in the Western Cape. Now, the Honourable Member is concerned that she and her party are being reduced to toothless voices in this Parliament, which of course takes me by surprise that the Honourable Member and her party appear to be trying to marginalise themselves by taking issue with the fact that they speak immediately after the Minister, which in my view should be their rightful place as the biggest minority party in this House. On the question of the Saldanha IDZ, the member will be aware that the Saldanha IDZ has a significant commitment to skills development, and indeed one of the obstacles often to that program is leveraging funds from national government. The Honourable Member also raises the question of compensation of employees and funds surrendered to the Provincial Revenue Fund, quite rightly. We are, of course, committed, as we explained in committee, to filling vacancies, but particularly at a senior level, but only once we have finalized our provincial strategic plan in the department. In closing, Speaker, I would like to associate myself with the comments of the Honourable Bartman and thank our head of department, Mr. Solly Fourie, and his team for all their efforts in getting things done in the Western Cape. And we, of course, going forward, will continue to back business by being responsive to business, by being open to business, so that we can continue to grow the economy and create jobs and give hope to people who do not have jobs or who have given up looking for jobs in the Western Cape. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, honorable members. That concludes this particular vote. Now, we will just allow 3 minutes to switch between this and the next vote. We are live streaming these debates so that the public is able to have access. The 3 minutes starts now, so you may remain seated or you may go and have coffee.